Hi everyone, welcome to my first live video. So, today I'm here to have a little chit chat and talk about my gardening inspiration and how I got into gardening. So, I have a lot of viewers who follow me on my channel, a lot of you who support me and share your thoughts about my videos, subscribe. So I'm really thankful to all of you for all your support. So, firstly, I want to thank all of you for all your support, and it's lovely to know that I'm getting a lot of support from a lot of friends around the world and a lot of people who love and enjoy gardening. So, today, as I talk about my gardening journey, it would be nice to hear from you too in the chat section about what inspired you to start gardening, how long you've been gardening, a few tips that you might want to share with us, and let's have a chat and let's enjoy this journey together. So, about me, about how I started gardening is when I moved to the United States in 2006. We lived in Danbury for a few years and then we moved over to Texas. So, close to 7 to 8 years is what we lived in the United States, and it was a very wonderful. Hi, Haryali, the Vanaspati. Hi, hello. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. So it was a great journey through those years, and that is when I started gardening. So initially, we lived in Danbury, Connecticut, and at that time, there were a few ingredients that I was missing from our regular home cooking that I was used to when we cooked and lived in India. Hi, Krishna Plant Care. Thank you for joining. So, as I mentioned, there were a few ingredients that I was missing, mainly curry leaves. Curry leaves is a very important ingredient in a lot of South Indian cooking. So, it's something that is very hard to cook without. It loses, the dish loses a lot of flavor if it's skipped from the dish. And same thing with cilantro. And I found parsley as an alternative to cilantro, the taste of which I really didn't like that much. So, casually, as I was shopping at Walmart one day and I was walking through the gardening section, so it was during the spring summertime, and I saw a few saplings of tomatoes and cilantro. So, I picked up those plants and I brought them home. But I wasn't really sure of how to take care of these plants because I was gardening for the first time. And until then, I had never taken any interest in gardening. Cooking was my main hobby. I loved to try new recipes and do a lot of cooking. But gardening was something that I had never tried until then. But then I just brought home these plants and they had little instruction labels on them. So I just went by those and they did pretty well for me. I was really happy at my first attempt in gardening. So I was really happy when I got a lot of tomatoes lot of harvest from the jalapenos and mint and cilantro that I purchased the first year. And also at the end of the season, when it started getting cold and Danbury gets the frost and snow. So towards October, November, when temperatures started really cooling down and freezing, I really wanted to save that plant and I brought it indoors and I kept it in our heated kitchen. So I didn't want to let go of that plant and I really didn't know at that time because I was new to gardening. I had no clue that tomato plants or vegetable plants had a short life or a seasonal life. So I was trying to, save all those tomatoes and save the plant and let it be with me as long as possible. And then I casually spoke to my dad, and my dad has been into gardening a lot. He does a lot of gardening even now. And my parents, both of them, they love plants and they are into gardening a lot. So my dad told me that vegetables are all seasonal plants. You will have to let go of the plant and it will you have to get a new plant in the next season, next summer. So I was really disappointed because I had no clue that that's how it worked. So I had no clue. I was really disappointed. But I tried to save as many tomatoes as possible. And then I had a lot of green tomatoes. I didn't know what to do with those. Then I searched online. I saw some recipes for fried green tomatoes. And I saw a few tips on how to ripen these on the counter by putting them all into a paper bag with one ripened tomatoes and keeping them in a warm place. So over a period of time, they would ripen. So that was my first year or my first attempt at gardening. So I'm just going to share a picture here of my first plants. These are my first plants. I bought them. I grew a few from seeds and then I had these ready to use cocoa peat cups and potting soil from Walmart. So this is what I had in the first year. This is my patio and it was getting a lot of sun and that is where I grew these plants. So then after that the next year I wanted to expand a little bit more and when my first year succeeded I was really excited to start growing more plants and the next year I decided to get some seeds rather than saplings because seeds are considerably cheaper than saplings. So I went and I purchased some seeds and a few pots and some potting mix. And then I grew more vegetables, a few more vegetables than what I did in the previous season. So this was my small container garden from the second year. So initially, I placed these on the lawn because my patio didn't have enough space, and I placed them on the lawn in front of the townhouse where we lived. And the landlord was really annoyed that I was keeping these containers on her lawn because she said, "You're just going to wreck my lawn with all this." So I had no clue because I was new to gardening, I had no clue that keeping these containers on the lawn would spoil the lawn. So I removed all of them and I kept them on a stone ledge that was leading to the driveway. So this is all the containers that I had on the stone ledge. So I bought some terracotta pots, some plastic pots, and also used some Kirkland detergent containers. So for people who know how have used these Kirkland laundry detergent tubs, you know how big they are and how sturdy they are. And it's not even easy to poke a drainage hole in that because they are really thick and they are really strong. They last you a very long time. So these are a few vegetables that I grow, and this was a curry leaf plant which was gifted to me by one of our family friends. So curry leaf is something that we really need to use in a lot of our dishes, and I really loved it, and I had it as long as I was there in the United States. So this was my second year with containers, a few containers where I grew some beans, curry leaves, mint, tomatoes, eggplants, okra, just few, probably, one plant or two plants per container. So that's all I had. And I really enjoyed, and it was a lot of fun to see all of this grow. So, coming to my background in gardening, until 2006, as I mentioned before, I never took any interest in gardening. My interest was all in cooking. But obviously, when you are cooking, when you love cooking, and once you have kids, it's really important that we give them a lot of fresh ingredients. Hi, Garden to De-stress, sorry. Hello. Thanks for joining. So, yes, as you can see here, garden to de-stress. It's a real, relaxing thing to garden. I really enjoy it. So, as I had mentioned, I had just loved only cooking. I never cared much about gardening. But once we have kids and once we start cooking for kids, we want more fresh ingredients. We want more organic ingredients so that you know that they are eating healthy food. So that is something that inspired me to start. And if I'm taking a look at my background, when I was growing up, I never noticed how much my parents were into gardening. But when I look back at those years, when I grew up, we always had plants around the house. We always had indoor plants. And whenever we were expecting a visitor or a guest, we always had a few plants indoors. That was, we rearranged our living room and dining room. We always added a few plants and made it look nice and green and fresh. And also, my dad loved to grow a lot of things in his garden. He had curry leaf plants, and he used to save seeds from store bought papayas and grow papaya trees in our garden. And we had a very limited garden space. So it was a small area with just a space of 3 to 4 feet wide on the side of the house and a little bit in the front. So they used that space to plant few flowering plants. We had plumeria and we had curry leaves, we had papayas. So whatever they could grow, they tried to grow in that space and keep that space always green and very beautiful looking. And at that time when I was growing up, there was no or little concept of terrace gardening. So we've never seen anybody do terrace gardening during that time. But if that concept was a little more open at that time, definitely, there would have been a lot of plants on our terrace growing a lot of vegetables, because my dad and my mom, they love plants, they love gardening. And my dad is more into vegetable gardening and edibles, and my mother loves all the indoor plants and flowering plants and you know all the ornamental plants. So apart from them, my grandmother and her sister are also into a lot of gardening. They also are crazy about plants. They love to collect plants. They share plants between themselves and their friends. So, this is my background in gardening. So, I have a background, but I didn't realize that until my late 20s, probably. And, that's when I took that interest. And even when I took that interest, I had only interest in growing vegetables and edibles. I took no interest in flowering plants or indoor plants or anything ornamental. My interest was only in edibles. So I started with that one tomato plant, that, those two, three plants in the beginning, the tomato, the herbs. And then slowly every year I tried to expand a little more, try something new. But during the gardening journey, during all these years, I have learned that there are a lot of failures that we go through. And I grew up on a farm. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, Garden to De Stress tells me that she grew up on a farm, and that's amazing. You know, my parents have a bigger piece of land, and now they have a lot of trees. And I know how amazing it is when you have fruits and vegetables and all of that coming directly from your farm or from your garden. So it's great that to know that you grew up on a farm. We never had that opportunity because I always grew up in a city. I always lived in a city. So I live in Bangalore, which is a city, and I'm currently on the suburbs of Bangalore. So we do have a little bit of space. I mean, it's not too much of space, but we have a little bit of space on both sides of our house. And with that little space, we are doing the maximum. We've packed it up with plants, and it's still going on. We every now and then we visit the nursery. It's a real um, you know de-stressor for us. Me and my husband, we just love to go plant shopping. We just enjoy that. It's such a relaxing thing for us. Even today we went plant shopping. Actually, we got a few plants, a couple of fruit trees. So it's something that we really enjoy. It's amazing. I mean, I would any day prefer going plant shopping rather than going to the mall or someplace for regular shopping. So that's something that we really enjoy a lot. So this is from Danbury, and after Danbury, we moved to Texas. Texas has more extended summer months, spring, summer months, and we have an extended gardening season. So, first year we were in an apartment, and this is from that apartment. So, I used a lot of yogurt containers and other small containers to grow a lot of things from seed. So, as I mentioned, I every year I have been trying to expand my knowledge a little bit and grow something new that I have never tried before. And successfully, I have grown quite a few things. There are a few things I have really been unsuccessful at. There are a few things that I have almost given up to. Yeah, of course, yes. Most of us who garden or like plants, yes, they definitely enjoy plant shopping. Yes, that really makes my day. I really enjoy doing that. So every year I try to grow something new every year. So starting with tomatoes and herbs, I also expanded to other few other vegetables, and it has been a really enjoyable journey of many years and a lot of learning. I've learned so many new things, and I'm sure I still have a long way to go. So there were so many things. For the first thing, I didn't even know that vegetables were seasonal plants. So that might seem funny to people, but when I started gardening, it was something totally new to me. I had no clue that, within 3 or 4 months, that would be the end of the life of a plant, because I thought plants live forever. Because from what I have seen, as I grew up, the few indoor plants that we had at home. So they were mostly aglonimas and different barkias. I didn't know the names of any of those plants back then. But now, when I think about it, it's many of those shade indoor plants, and we had them rotated indoors and out. And I thought like those plants, most plants lived forever, or at least for a few years. I never thought that, the plant would be dead in a few months. So that was the first thing. And I also didn't know that, keeping containers or something on the grass would spoil the grass. I do now. So whenever my kids put something on the grass, if they leave the garden hose lying there or our pet's mat on the grass, I tell them, please take them off because it's going to spoil the grass. Because I know now that it cuts off all the light and oxygen, and over a period of time, the grass is going to die. So these are things that I have learned a lot over the years, and I'm really glad to. Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. I have been watching a lot of gardeners on YouTube and Google search. Yes, definitely. Google search has definitely helped me out. But the first tips that I took were from my dad mostly. So there was a time in Danbury once I had pest attack on all these plants in the garden, and I didn't know what to do. I was like so disappointed because so many of the leaves were being eaten up. Hi Farid. Hello. Thank you for joining. So I had a pest attack on my plants and I didn't know what to do, you know. So he was the one who told me to use neem oil spray. So he said, mix a little bit of neem oil in a liter of water, add a little dishwash detergent, and spray it on your plants. And what I did is in the middle of the day, I just ran in, I got that, and I used a spray bottle and sprayed all the leaves of my plants. To come back and see in 1 hour that all those leaves had died. They all turned black, they just died back. So I was shocked. And, I called up my dad again and said, you told me to do this and this is what happened. So he said, no, you never do it during the day. You either do it early in the morning or in the evening. You never do it when the sun shines. So that's going to only kill your plants. So, luckily, only a few of those leaves were damaged, and I could retrieve a few of those plants. So, I could retrieve many of those plants. I watered them and I took care of them. I trimmed off those burnt leaves, and I somehow managed to revive a few of those plants. So now I know better. I know that pesticide or any kind of fertilizer should never be added during the midday or when it's hot outside. So it should be done only early in the morning or in the evening. And adding a fertilizer, and we should water it immediately so that it doesn't burn the roots of the plant. So these are few things that I have been learning, and I think I'm in the process of learning. I'm still learning a lot of new things. Recently I learned that kiwi was a climber. I had no clue that kiwi was a climber. I thought it was a regular fruit tree. But recently, when I did some reading online, so the story behind that is we have grapes in our garden, and it's been there for a few years, but it's not really doing that well. A couple of years back, we just got a small bunch of grapes, and that's it. Apart from that, we haven't got any good harvest of grapes. We just get lots and lots of foliage and nothing at all. So I have a feeling that it's probably because it's not getting enough sunlight. So I was just reading online, and there was an article suggesting kiwi as an alternative to grapes, because grapes is something that is hard to grow, and you know, kiwi is an alternative because it grows well in shady parts of the garden. So it doesn't need too much of sunlight, and it's a climber, and it has beautiful flowers, and it grows well. So today, when we went to the nursery, we got a new kiwi plant, and hopefully, it's going to do well. So every day, it's a new learning. Through my gardening journey, I've been learning so many new things. I've been watching a lot of videos. I watch um, Rachel's Brampton Gardener. I watch The Wicked Awesome Gardening. I watch Rennie Barry's channel, and there is a botanical woman on YouTube. She's from our local area. She's from Kerala. So there are so many channels that I watch. I enjoy watching. I try to gather tips, new tips. Through that, I learn a lot of new tips through experience. And through all these years, it has been wonderful because there have been a lot of things we have grown successfully, a lot of things that we have not, been successful at. But there is one thing that over the years that I have learned in gardening is the use of pesticides. Use of pesticides is something that we really need to think about. So, whenever we are growing for our family, I know a lot of people do gardening. I've heard a few people mention that, they use pesticides in their gardening to get rid of many of the pests, and they have a successful crop and they get a lot to harvest. But organic gardening is something that, is very important. I've A lot of people are doing a lot of organic gardening now. They are trying to avoid pesticides. And that is something that I feel very strongly about. Because when we are growing the produce, the fruits, or the vegetables, or the herbs in our garden to feed our families, we should definitely completely avoid the use of any kind of pesticide. Because if we are going to use pesticides, the chemical pesticides in our gardening, what is the point of gardening? There's no point in gardening and growing stuff when you're going to use a lot of pesticides. So we have a lot of loss of crop, or we lose a lot of vegetables to pests, we lose a lot of plants to pests. But in spite of that, we are very you know s- determined about the thing that we will not use any sort of chemical pesticides at any cost. We have lost a lot of plants. We've had to, mealybugs are a big issue. Just this morning, I had to cut off an entire plant because it was infected. I had to cut it down to the root. The autumn clematis, we have that in a container on the terrace. And I saw that it was completely infected with mealybugs. So I had to trim it off all the way to the root. And it was very sad because the plant had been trimmed before, it had been pruned, and the growth was beautiful. And probably, it would have started blooming also. But in spite of that, if I had let it be on that plant, it would have infected the rest of the plants on our terrace garden. So I had to cut it off, and we use neem oil, or we use homemade pesticides. I have shared many of them on our channel. So we use onion peels, citrus peels, ginger, garlic, green chili. the 3G solution. So we use all of that, but in spite of that, there are some things that don't go away with these organic pesticides. But it's okay to lose a plant, and or it's okay to cut off a branch, and let the plant revive itself rather than using any kind of chemical pesticides or any harmful things that would not just harm the soil, the plant, and it would also harm our health. So when we are feeding our children, our families with the produce from our garden, we must be rest assured that this is healthy. This has no chemicals in it. It has nothing harmful that would cause any harm to anybody in the family, and also the friends and neighbors that we share it with. So that is one thing that my husband and I feel very strong about, and we never use any kind of chemical pesticides in our garden. So now this is our apartment from Texas, and after that, I moved to a house in McKinney. Haryali the Vanaspati. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you. So this is a small patch of garden that I made when we moved to McKinney, Texas. So this is a garden, and I had this chicken wire around my garden because we had a lot of bunnies getting into the garden and eating up the plants, the produce, the vegetables. So this is the little bunny that I was talking about, and we had a lot of bunnies. In spite of the chicken wire, one day I came back. I had gone out and I came back and I saw a couple of bunnies inside the vegetable patch. So they had burrowed under and, you know, gotten. So I used those bricks to create a little border around so that the chicken wire would stay in place and the bunnies hopefully wouldn't get a chance to get in. So this was our garden from McKinney, Texas, and there I had a lot of produce. It grew very well. We had an extended gardening season. It would start all the way from March until October. October, probably even November that year. I had a lot of fresh vegetables, and I would just, cut them up, put them in the freezer, and it was really nice. I also tried a little bit of composting that year. It didn't really work out that much. But hi, Danny from the Wicked Awesome Gardening. Hi, thank you for stopping by. Yeah, it's great. It's great that you're up, and this is my first live, so I'm really glad to see you. So, this was a little bit of composting that I tried for the first time, and it didn't really do well. I didn't know much about composting back then. So, and this was one heap of garlic that I harvested that year, 2012. It was a great year for my garlic, and I had one of my cousin who lived very close by, so I shared a bunch of garlic with them. So this is the curry leaf plant that I got when I was in Danbury. I brought it with me when I moved to Texas, and I also grew a mango tree from seed. That was my first attempt at growing a mango tree from seed. But I had to let go of all of this when I moved back to India in 2013. So this is my dad's garden, and he, as I had mentioned earlier, he had a lot of papayas. He loved to grow papayas, and he still has a lot of papaya trees in his garden currently, a lot of banana trees, and this was his garden where he grew a lot of papaya trees from seed, from store bought papayas. He used to save the seeds and he used to grow all of these. So once I moved in to Bangalore, and then I started doing some gardening. And this is my daughter with a small harvest of tomatoes from our garden. So we had a little balcony. We didn't have too much of space to do things in the ground. So we had a balcony and we had a little patch that you saw with the papaya trees. So we had all these containers, and uh, my father's company, they had a lot of resin buckets that I recycled to use for my gardening. So there were 20-25 liter buckets which I still use, many of them. Some of them have broken and they've got damaged, but I still use many of them. So these are a few harvests that I did after I moved to Bangalore in 2013. And this is the small container garden that we had on our balcony. So later in 2016, we moved to the house where we currently live. And this was the first thing that we got a successful harvest out of, the passion fruits. So the passion fruit was a gift from my grandmother's sister when we moved into this house. So she also loves gardening and she also knows how much we all love gardening and we love plants. So it was a gift from her, and we grow these passion fruit vines on the pergola on our front porch. So this is the amount of passion fruits that we got. So we got so much, and then that year, the following year, we also started some terrace gardening. We did, we got some grow bags and we started growing some vegetables on our terrace. So this is a little journey of how I started gardening, what inspired me to start gardening. Yes, I saw that video of your okra video and you were tasting it live online. I remember on camera. I saw you. That was amazing. But we've never tried it um, raw. We usually saute it. We make dishes out of it. I've never tried okra, so I know. I saw that video. That was amazing. Yeah. So this is a view of our garden. So the next year after we had passion fruits, we planted pomegranates and we planted few other things. So now we have a garden where every day, I mean every month we have something new. Oh, is it okay? I don't remember seeing papayas a lot in the US when I was there. I don't remember because it was not something that I really liked to eat. But when I started growing papayas at home, then it was a different situation. Then I started eating, but it was not something that I was very fond of. Even when my dad grew them, I never took that much of interest in eating papayas, and I wasn't too crazy about them. But then when we started growing it at home, once we moved into this house and we had we I grew some papayas from seed, and they were a seedless variety, a very, very sweet variety, as tasty as mangoes. Mango is one of my favorite fruits. So it was as tasty as mangoes. And we shared it with a few of our neighbors. and everybody loved them. And then people started coming back to us asking for papayas. And then over a period of time, I started selling them. Just a very nominal price, but we started selling them after giving away a lot of papayas for free. So there was a lot of demand for the papayas that we grew in our garden because they were very, very tasty and very sweet, and they were also seedless. So after I had like three, four trees we had in our garden, and after those died back, so they usually die back after, you know, 3 to 4 years. The tree starts uprooting itself. So I've shared a video on that also. So that once that happened, and after those plants of or after those trees died back, we were not we have not been successful in growing papayas after that. I've been trying so many times. Every time we go to the nursery, we pick up a few saplings of papayas. It doesn't grow. It stays in the ground for, a few weeks, and then slowly it starts to die back. And I have planted a few seeds of papaya in the ground, and hopefully they will grow. But after those first few trees that we had with those delicious, tasty papayas, they never grew for us. It didn't at all. So that has been a real disappointment because after we grew that and after we tasted that, it was really nice to see those fresh fruits. And I used to get those, we used to pick those fruits whenever I never had anything to pack for my kids' school snack. And as my kids grew up, we always made sure that we didn't give them any unhealthy, snacks. We always tried to give them lots of fruits. So it was nice to have homegrown papayas, organic fruit, homegrown pomegranates. So last couple of years we've been getting a lot of pomegranates, and there are a few pest attacks. There are a few fruits that we lose to pests, but in spite of that, we don't use any kind of chemicals because that is something that we need to eat, our children need to eat, and that is something that is a complete no no. We should completely stop using any kind of chemicals because it also, harms the soil, it harms all the organisms in the soil, the earthworms, and all of them. Yes, we love pomegranate too. We just pick them off the tree and we just, I just open them up and divide them among everybody, and we just finish it immediately. And the ones that we got last year were really tasty, very juicy, very sweet. And they're also rich in a lot of nutrients. So, pomegranate is something that we see in outside a lot of homes in our area. So, it's something that is a local fruit. So, it grows very well here, I guess. And papayas and bananas, these are all things that are local fruits that grow really well here. So, another thing that we try to do is to grow maximum local produce. I mean, I'm also trying to grow kiwis and strawberries. Not very successful with strawberries. Occasionally, we get a few fruits and we just divide it among us. But apart from that, we always try to grow local produce, whether it is vegetables or fruits or herbs, because I feel that, you know, internationally sourced or exotic things are okay to eat once in a while, but not on a regular basis. It's always healthier to eat what we grew up eating, the kind of food that we grew up eating, because that is what our body is accustomed to, and that is what keeps us healthy. So, there are a lot of, nowadays I see a lot of people trying to switch oils and switch a lot of things, produce, and try to eat more exotic and things sourced from other places or from different countries. And I feel it's okay to, taste that or eat it once in a while. I mean, we don't have to deprive ourselves of any of the exotic food that is available to us in our market. But always, it's better to keep in mind that the local food that is grown locally has more nutrition or is more something that our body is used to. Switching over to something new, completely new, is probably, according to me, is not a great idea. Are they a pain to eat? Why? Yeah, it's a little tough to get the peels off, but if you go through a lot of YouTube videos, you will see how to peel a pomegranate successfully. And over a period of time, I have tried to learn a little bit on how to open up a pomegranate without um, it being a pain. And sometimes I just hand it over to the kids, and it's their job. It's their job to clean out, herbs. Drumstick tree is something that we have at home, so I make a dal, a curry with drumstick leaves. So, as you said, it's a pain. It's I hate to clean those drumstick leaves, so I just call my kids and I let them sit at the table and use their time to help me out with it, clean out all the drumstick leaves, get out all the branches and the veins of the thing, and get out only the leaves so that it's easier for me to cook. So I just have to cook, I don't have to clean it. I don't really enjoy cleaning greens or herbs. So, as I was saying, local fruits and vegetables are what we try to grow, but we occasionally do try to grow different things, like lettuce is something that I've been growing over the last couple of years. I haven't seen lettuce as a vegetable as when I was growing up. I've never seen that. So I have been introduced to a lot of different varieties, especially when during my stay in the United States, I have been introduced to a lot of different varieties. In India, we most commonly use only red onions. Red onions are something that I knew when I was growing up. But when I came there and I lived there, I saw white onions and yellow onions, something that I had never seen before here. And a lot of different varieties of peppers that I've never seen here. But now we get to see many varieties here, a lot of new things here that have been imported or that people have even started growing here. So, but in spite of that, I feel that the things that we grew up eating, that our body is used to, is something that we should eat on a regular basis, and not too much of exotic things, too much of things that have been sourced from other places or that have been imported, because we don't know how long it's been in transit, what kind of pesticides are being used. Because if they are in transit for a long time and they are still fresh after several days or even weeks, it's very likely that a lot of pesticides have been used. Because I have noticed when we go to get vegetables or to get groceries, you see that a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables stay fresh for an extended period of time. And when I used to harvest things from my garden, I used to see that they used to, wither more quickly. I mean, the greens and the spinach and things like that, within few hours of harvesting them, they just, wither and they lose that completely fresh look. So that itself shows how much of chemical pesticide is being used for it to remain fresh for an extended period of time. I mean, it's okay for it to be fresh for maybe a day or two, but how about a couple of weeks? So when we see such things, we know that it there is definite use of chemical pesticide in such produce, and that is not something that we want to feed our families, our kids, because there are a hell lot of diseases that are coming up. So many things, people are falling sick with no reason, and cancer is something that was not very common when I was growing up, or I haven't heard much about it. But now it is a very common thing. We don't know what our body is ingesting through these kind of vegetables or fruits that we buy from the market. So, if we think of what we are feeding our family, if we want to be confident about what we are feeding our family, then the best way is to grow whatever possible at home and to completely avoid usage of any kind of chemicals. True. Yeah, the same issue I had when I moved to the United States. There were a lot of ingredients that I was used to when I was growing up, and there are a lot of things that were not available. So that is how I started, gardening, and I'm happy to say that every time I harvest something from our garden, I very proudly come in and show my kids that, look, today's lunch is from our garden, or whatever, today's dinner or lunch or sandwich or pasta or whatever dish that I'm making, these couple of ingredients are from our garden. We grow this. So that is something that I proudly come in and announce every time, because I'm really proud that we are growing this at home, whatever the quantity, even if it's just a bunch of leaves of spinach, or just a little bit of mint, or some cilantro, or a couple of tomatoes. So now they also know that their mom is really proud of what she's doing. And my husband is one of my biggest strengths when it comes to gardening. I mean, in everything, in every aspect. But we do a lot of gardening together. There are a lot of digging and hard jobs which he never lets me do. He does everything for me. So there was a couple of comments previously who, when somebody asked me, do you do the gardening or does your husband do it? So I replied that we do it together. Most of the time we do it together. So there are small things, a few small things that occasionally I do. And every morning, starting every morning, we have to take a walk around our garden with a cup of tea. So that is something that refreshes us. Hi, Nafi. Hello. Thanks for stopping by. How are you? So, walking around the garden with a cup of tea, seeing if a new flower has bloomed or something new has grown, that is something that really makes our day. So when I wake up, he's already up and he's already been through the garden, and then he comes and tells me that, oh, look, today there's a new flower, or he takes a picture and he shows it to me, or something like that. So that is something that we really enjoy doing together, and plant shopping is something that we really enjoy doing together. So this is the gardening journey that I wanted to share with everybody, because my YouTube channel has been on only for a little more than a year. So Yes, definitely. It's definitely uplifting. It's one of the best things to do according to me. I mean, I would rather spend some time in my garden than sit at home or sit indoors and watch a movie. And if, the evening time, I'm a little scared to go out into the garden because we have occasional sighting of snakes here. So I'm a little scared, and we have seen snakes even during the daytime. And every time we see a snake, the next couple of days, I'm a little hesitant uh, to walk in the garden. But then within a day or two, I just discard that thought, and because it's more important for me to be with my plants. I need to spend that time with my plants to see how things are growing, if there is any pest attack. It's something that we need to do on a daily basis, otherwise it doesn't work. you know One of our friends suggested uh, drip irrigation. He said, why don't you add a drip irrigation in your garden? It'll save you so much of time. You don't have to water your plants all the time. But I actually enjoy it. My husband and I take turns to water the plants. Sometimes he waters one side of the garden, I do the other side. So we take turns and we really enjoy watering our plants. We like to see what changes have happened, any new uh, bloom, or any vegetables that have grown, and if there is any pest attack, we need to attend to it immediately. So we enjoy doing that, and we like to be updated uh, on the regular happenings in the garden. We don't like to just leave a drip irrigation there and just let it go, because that's not what uh, we want from gardening. We want to spend that time. We want to, have our hands in the soil, do things as much as possible. We do have, an occasional help. Yes, yes, definitely. It's not a chore. It's that enjoyment. It's that, that feeling that you get every time you see something doing well, some plant that is growing well, or when you harvest something. It's just that feeling of contentment that you get, and it's not a chore. It's not at all a chore. It's something that we really enjoy. So that is something that I wanted to share with all my friends who have been watching me over this 1 year and supporting me. And it's been a wonderful journey. It's it's something, one of the best things that I learned in my life. And I'm so happy that my husband is there to support me on this. And every time I'm on the phone with my dad, he has a lot of things to share about his garden too, about what he harvested, something new. I have something new to learn from him. He has something new to learn from me. So it's a wonderful journey. It's something that gives you a lot of relaxation. It's a real quality use of time, rather than spending time in front of the TV or watching things on our cell phone or our mobile. I feel walking through the garden, if we have any kind of stress, anything that's upsetting us, something on our mind that is not allowing us to relax, just a walk in the garden, just getting that fresh air and watching those beautiful flowers bloom, all of that is something that really relaxes us, really brings down our stress. Hi, Kumud, how are you? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here, Kumudini's Home Garden is another channel that I watch on a regular basis. I love all her gardening videos, and if you guys get a chance, please do check out her videos as well. So I love her gardening videos. I watch them regularly. So I hope today's life has, I've just wanted to open myself about my gardening journey and the different things that I have learned, a few blunders that I have made, all of that with, my friends in this gardening world, because it's nice to get to know each other. And I've watched a lot of lives by the Wicked Awesome Gardening. I have watched lives by Brampton Gardener and other channels as well. I mentioned that in the beginning of the video too. So it's after seeing your lives, I have also been inspired to share a little story about my gardening journey, so that you guys can get to know me better, how I started my gardening journey, and how I got to where I am now, and the different things that I'm growing now. So it has been a wonderful time. I really enjoyed doing this live, and I hope the people who were unable to join this live would definitely go back and watch the replay. So, thank you all for supporting me, and please do share any tips or any comments that you have on my videos, or what you would like to see in the future, what you enjoyed watching, what you didn't like. I would love to hear all your thoughts, and that's how we become a community. So, thank you all for watching. Thank you so much. Please do continue to support me in my gardening journey, and it has been really wonderful to share these moments with all of you. So, thank you, everyone. Have a very good day. Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you for watching me today. Bye.